eyes and your vision are under attack. Damaging blue light from the sun, your phone, your computer, your tablet, even light bulbs and car headlights is constantly bombarding you. The good news is our eyes actually already have a line of defense to counter the effects of blue light. This defense is made up of 3 pigments called carotenoids. MacuHealth with Micromycel, the only supplement with the exclusive patent on all 3 macular carotenoids and Micromycel technology.
Do your patients know what presbyopia is?
There are people who are afraid of the press.
Have you talked to your patients about multifocal contact lenses?
I've heard the bifocal, but not multifocal.
Exactly, not multifocal.
Do you need help with your multifocal strategy? Learn more at the conclusion of this episode. With more screen usage and indoor time, myopia, also known as nearsightedness, is increasing and getting worse in children. Now, certified eye doctors can prescribe MiSight One Day, the first and only FDA-approved soft contact lens to slow myopia progression in age-appropriate children. Visit CooperVision.com to find a Brilliant Futures certified eye doctor near you. Good morning, I'm Dr. Kerry Gelb, and welcome to Wellness 1280 on Open Your Eyes Radio. Please listen as I discuss the newest information in the world of health, nutrition, and sports every Saturday morning, 6 a.m. Central Time on AM 1280 The Patriot. Also, please share your thoughts by emailing me at drkerrygelb@gmail.com. That's drkerrygelb@gmail.com. And visit my new website, wellness1280.com, where we have all guest links, Wellness 1280 info, and previous shows. Wellness is taking over the Patriot Airways for the next hour. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Julie Diaz. Hashimoto's thyroiditis is the most common autoimmune disease in the U.S., affecting an estimated 14 million people. The symptoms can be life-altering: puffy eyes, thinning eyebrows, constant fatigue, dry skin, brittle hair, struggling to lose weight, and even depression. It's a condition that often leaves people feeling frustrated, misunderstood, and desperate for answers. Today, we're joined by Julie Diaz, author of the Amazon bestseller, Conquer Hashimoto's. Inspired by her own personal struggles with Hashimoto's, Julie combines her firsthand experience with a science-based approach to help others overcome this challenging disease. In addition to being an author, Julie is a certified health coach and technical content strategist, bringing a unique perspective to thyroid health. Julie, welcome to Open Your Eyes Radio and podcast with Dr. Kerry Gelb.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. We know each other because you're actually one of my patients in my office. Right. And I always enjoy speaking with you, and I love when you come in because you're passionate about functional medicine the way I am. So I want to ask you, why did you write this book?
I wrote this book to save other people, and especially women, because women mostly are affected by this condition, but to save people from having the symptoms that I had and from having surgery, because I was able to shrink my thyroid nodules and avoid having surgery. And as you know, all surgery has its risks. So if I could save anyone from having surgery, that would just be wonderful. But, a lot of women that have this are struggling raising children. They're also taking care of the older generation. And that's where I was. I was in the middle and I was exhausted. I had no energy. I was gaining weight without eating any differently. And a lot of things were going wrong. Yeah, the outer third of my eyebrows fell out. And they've grown back. So it's great. I have eyebrows again. But it's not easy. There's a lot of things. I had skin issues going on. And I feel so much better now, so I'd love to be able to help other people feel better too.
Tell me about some of the symptoms people have that have Hashimoto's or hypothyroid.
Fatigue is I think, one of the worst. And of course, the weight gain, the metabolism is affected, feeling hot and cold, brittle nails and hair. There's depression and anxiety go along with it as well.
So as I read your book, you take us on a journey, you take us on your personal journey, and you have different names for doctors. I find it very amusing, the names that you call them. Luckily, you don't call me any of those names in the book. But
No.
start off with the journey. It took you a while to get diagnosed. So tell us about the journey, what it started with, and take us to the place where you finally did get diagnosed so you could start recovering.
Okay. Well, I had already been passionate about learning about natural health because I was driven to help my mom who suffered from health conditions. And so I wasn't going into it blind. I knew I had a thyroid problem, but I went to doctor after doctor after doctor, and they just didn't test me for the thyroid antibodies, which back then I didn't know about that test. So they looked at my TSH and my T3, my T4. Some of them even did a full panel with reverse T3 and free T3 and free T4. And, you see all these numbers and they're all normal and they say you're fine. So I had gone to primary care doctors. I had gone to a hormone doctor, a couple of gynecologists. And I went through probably 10 or 12 different doctors and didn't get a diagnosis. Finally, my primary, after I insisted I had a thyroid problem, sent me to an endocrinologist, and she ran the thyroid antibody test, apparently, because as I was talking to her, saw her writing down on my chart, consistent with Hashimoto's. I could see what she was writing. And I said to her, is that my diagnosis? And she looked at me kind of like she was embarrassed, like she wasn't going to tell me. I could not believe it. She was not going to tell me my diagnosis. After 10 years of suffering with illness, if somebody has an autoimmune disease, they have a right to know. I had a right to know, and all the women out there have a right to know, and men, if their body has gone autoimmune. Because if it does, then you are more at risk of developing another autoimmune disease or even diabetes, a heart disease. There's other complications. So it's very important to know. If they don't know how to treat it, then maybe they should refer you out, like I say in my book, to a functional medicine doctor or even a health coach like myself that can help you to get on track before things get worse.
Why do you think, I mean, it's hard to get into people's heads, but why do you think that the doctor didn't want to share the diagnosis with you after going on for so many years, so many doctors, and was she not sure about the diagnosis, or why do you think she didn't want to share the diagnosis with you?
I don't think it was that she wasn't sure. I think that it's no matter what it is, they're going to prescribe levothyroxine and send you away, which is, she said, take this medication, levothyroxine, which is Synthroid, right? And come back in 6 months. And that is, I think, what they call a formulary in the medical world. You can tell me, but I think they have like their approach that is the regular approach that they're supposed to take. And I think that she was doing what she was trained to do. But two of my other doctors actually told me on separate occasions that they don't know what to do. So one of them said, well, what am I going to do? And I was shocked.
So let me ask you a question here about T4. Synthroid is T4, and for it to really work, it has to convert to T3 because that's the active form of thyroid hormone. Why do you think in the U.S. most doctors only prescribe T4? There's a large percentage of people that can't convert T4 to T3.
Yeah, I see that as a serious problem. And I had already read about it and I knew that. So I wasn't going to take the medicine. I didn't fill the prescription. And I went to yet another doctor and I ended up taking Armor Thyroid because that one has T3, T4, and T1 and T2 and is a more natural form. So I took that for 1 year. And then I started having a rapid heartbeat and I weaned myself off it. So apparently I've gotten too much. But anyway, it's in the top 3 selling drugs in the United States. So there's some, I don't know, monetary reason behind it.
So what were your main symptoms for you personally that you talk about in the book? Was it the fatigue? Was it depression? What were your main symptoms?
Well, like I said, some of the hair, skin, nails, temperature, and definitely weight gain. I gained 30 pounds in 1 year, like very rapidly. And that was alarming. And the fatigue was the worst. And then I was feeling dread going to work. I was anxious. So, yeah, my mood was definitely affected. Of course, I had also gone through a divorce and there were other things going on. And stress, as you know, is like a big factor. And some people go autoimmune after very stressful events.
I mean, there's definitely a big psychological component where people just don't feel right. They have brain fog. They have trouble concentrating. They
Yeah.
don't have the thrive to really want to live their life to their fullest.
Yeah, that's very sad. And that's why in my book, I have like a lot of encouragement in there because even if you're on the floor and you have no energy, believe that you can get better and stay positive. And I have a lot of messages in my book to keep going, because even if you even get a little bit better and some people want to stop there, you can get even better than that. And that's what happened to me. I kept going up levels and feeling better and better. So I'd like to help other people to do that too, because it's possible.
So we're speaking with Julie about, she's a citizen journalist. We're speaking about thyroid, something that happened to her. She in her book, she goes through the journey of how she was diagnosed and how she finally was treated and how she eventually started to feel better. But let's talk about the cause of hypothyroid or Hashimoto's. Most of hypothyroid, as you have in your book, 90% of Hashimoto of hypothyroid is Hashimoto's. Talk to us about the causes.
Yes, and that's a sad thing that most people are not aware of, that because a lot of doctors tell their patients they have hypothyroidism, but they don't know that they're autoimmune, and they should know, and they have a right to know that, like I said. But the three main causes of all autoimmune disease in general are: one, having a genetic weakness; two, having intestinal permeability, also known as leaky gut; and three, having some kind of triggers like infections or toxicity. A lot of people have hidden infections that they might not have any symptoms of and have no idea they're carrying, even parasites. There's a parasite that is known to cause Hashimoto's disease, which I actually tested positive for and resolved that infection myself. There's also heavy metals toxicity is a serious problem that's not tested for normally by regular doctors, but they have found that heavy metal toxicity is a factor in causing autoimmune disease. And some autoimmune disease has been shown to be resolved just by detoxing heavy metals.
So you talk a lot about heavy metals in your book. How were you diagnosed
Okay.
and how did you detox it?
Yeah, I went to Dr. Jerk. I mean, I nicknamed him Dr. Jerk because he took my autistic son's toy out of his hand as soon as we walked in his room for no reason. And he like yelled at me one day. He was like, what's wrong with high blood? What? No, he said, what's wrong with high cholesterol? I'm like, nothing, I guess. I don't know. So he was like a really rough guy. But he did me a favor. He tested me for heavy metals. He tested me for iodine. He tested and for the gene mutation. That's when I found out that I had a gene mutation, the MTHFR. And so he gave me EDTA chelation therapy. And that was so through an IV. I went in for 6 months. Every 2 weeks, I had IV chelation therapy.
Let me
So,
interrupt you for 1 second. What heavy metals did you have?
oh, yeah. So I was high in mercury, lead, aluminum, and arsenic. And later years, I tested a little high for cadmium.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so they detox you through IV. Any other way of detoxing? Did they do juicing? Did you use any type of supplements to help with detoxification?
Okay. Well, before I went to him, I tried a supplement one time and I had like this awful side effect reaction. But while I was doing the IV, he gave me glutathione, which prevented side effects. But he really didn't guide me when it came to nutrition. I was doing that on my own, but I didn't really feel better when I was doing the IV chelation. And at the end of it, there's no way that I know how much lower my levels went, because when they finally did the test to retest me, they spilled my sample. And I didn't want to go back. I was very busy. I was struggling at work. And so I never went back. So what I did was I started detoxing myself with natural supplements like zeolite powder and modified citrus pectin. And I made modifications removing gluten and soy and dairy from my diet. And I was taking a lot of superfoods and berries and mushrooms and making smoothies and all this kind of stuff. And that all contributed to me feeling so much better. My energy zoomed after that.
Tell me about modified citrus pectin. Tell me how that works and what is it?
Okay, so modified citrus pectin is one of the best supplements, in my opinion, that you can take because it prevents galectin-3 proteins from clumping together. Galectin-3 proteins, there's over 3,000 studies out there that show that these proteins, when they grow too much, they cause degenerative diseases, including heart disease, kidney disease, cancer, all kinds of stuff. So this supplement not only prevents these cells, which cause fibrosis or hardening, like in the kidneys, would be kidney stone, for example, they also remove heavy metals and other pollutants and chemicals from your body. So for those reasons, I think it's the best thing ever. I have it right here. I take this one. It's Pectisol from Dr. Israel Elias. And he's an amazing doctor. He wrote this survival, I think it's called the Survival Protein. I have his book. So I reference his book in my book, and I talk about in depth about the modified citrus pectin and how to take it.
And zeolite.
Oh,
Zeolite is something I take, and I had an expert on
great.
the whole show on it with somebody who developed zeolite. So tell us about zeolite.
I listened to that show. That was excellent. Zeolite is very impressive. So it comes from volcanic ash. So it's kind of like a clay and it absorbs things. So it absorbs 12 different heavy metals. It also helps with gastrointestinal problems and all kinds of other things that are in my book. I found while researching for the book, I found it had so many more benefits than I was aware of. So when I took it, I was taking a tablespoon a day in my smoothie, and like I said, my energy zoomed up after 2 weeks of taking that. I was so happy too. My mood improved. Metals can bring you down with your mood. So that's another thing, mood wise.
I've had mercury toxicity. I used to eat a lot of sushi.
Okay.
And I'll give you what my story was. A buddy of mine, Dr. Helgado, I think you know Dr. Helgado.
I do.
So
Right.
I was going to do some blood. I was having phlebotomists come into my office, and she couldn't come in or whatever. So he said, just come to my office. I'll do it. And he's a OBGYN, but also a functional medicine practitioner. And there I am sitting with 12 pregnant women in an OBGYN office. And then he took my blood, and my mercury level was in the 30s. It was really, really high. And I couldn't. I could not sleep. My sleep was horrible. And I didn't do IV chelation, but I did chelation with oral chelation. And I stopped eating the sushi, and I stopped eating like bad salmon. There used to be a restaurant near where I worked that closed down. It was a Charlie Brown's at that time. And they served the salmon. There used to be these little red pellets in it. And I should have known better than to be eating something. That's before I got very interested in functional medicine. And I stopped with the like I said, the sushi and the seafood, and I got it down to below 5, and I was able to sleep again. So yeah, I mean, having heavy metals, eating the wrong types of food could be very devastating, and you did very well. How about charcoal? You mentioned that in your book.
Yeah, charcoal is a great thing. It's another binder. These are all binders, the pectin, the zeolites, and the charcoal. And charcoal is actually used in hospitals when people get snake bites or poison from whatever. So it just kind of absorbs bad things in your body. It can constipate though. So if you do take it, don't forget to drink a lot of water.
And you have to be careful with charcoal. You can't take it at the same time you're taking other supplements, because it'll remove the other supplements. But how about zeolite or modified citrus pectin? Can you take that at the same time as other supplements, or do you have to take that away from the other supplements as well?
You can take it. It might absorb some of them, but it's not going to like take it all away. But I try to take it alone, but don't, if it comes down to you forgetting to take it because you didn't have an empty stomach, I'd say to just go ahead and take it anyway. And an important point about the pectin too is it does not remove minerals from your body. Some of the chelation substances strip the body of minerals, and they did, test that, and it does not take out the minerals. So that's a good thing.
And modified citrus pectin, which is a very effective supplement, is used for a lot of things that could be effective. How do they make that? Where does it come from?
It comes from the pith of the orange peel. And the doctor that I talked about, Dr. Israel Elias, his grandmother told him when he was a little boy that the cure to diseases in the future will be the citrus fruits. So.
And could we just, eat the open up an orange and eat the pith, or it's not big enough?
Not the same.
Too big. It's too big, and you can't get it into the cells.
The key is the word modified. So they modify this pectin so that the molecular size is small enough that it can go in through your bloodstream and absorb things like into like the picture like a little cage where it just encapsulates the toxins that it's like magnetically drawn to and just takes them out of the body. And
what type of infections are associated with thyroid, Hashimoto's, hypothyroid? Which bugs is it?
Okay, so there's Yersinia enterocolitica. I don't know how to say that. There's different herpes viruses. There's the Epstein-Barr, which like 95% of people have Epstein-Barr in the world, which that's not a bacterial, that's a viral infection. There's H. pylori, it's another gut infection, and there's parasite infections.
And don't forget about Lyme. Talk to us about Lyme, how that could affect thyroid.
Lyme is a vector-borne illness. Vector-borne illnesses are ones where an insect bites you, the insects that draw your blood, like mosquitoes. And it's not just mosquitoes, that you can also get Lyme disease from fleas and louses and spiders, I believe. And I had Lyme disease, and I tested positive twice. I don't know if I just had it and never got rid of it or if I got it again, but I have a whole section in my book for how to heal holistically, how to support your body to get rid of Lyme disease. And I have a story about Dr. Lyme. I called her Dr. Lyme, but yeah, my son had Lyme disease. My mother had Lyme disease. It's a big problem in New Jersey and New England. And I think that there should be regular screening for Lyme disease in the states that are so heavily affected, but they don't usually catch it until you're like progressed into the disease, unfortunately.
Yeah, very difficult to diagnose conventionally. We're speaking with Julie Diaz, author of Conquer Hashimoto's. Go out and get a book. It's very comprehensive. If you're interested in functional medicine at all, it's like a functional medicine handbook. This is Dr. Kerry Gelb. We'll be back after the break.
MacuHealth, your science-born and tested solutions for visual performance, macular degeneration, and dry eye syndrome. New products coming soon. Embrace the science.
I'm back with Julie Diaz, author of Conquer Hashimoto's. Go out and get the book. It's a great book. It's a functional medicine like textbook written for anybody to understand. So if you're interested in functional medicine, she covers a lot of topics, not really just Hashimoto's, because everything is kind of related to each other. So she does a great job. So I wanted to make sure that we understood that when somebody goes to be tested, what tests they should do to see if they have Hashimoto's. If we talked about the symptoms in the first segment, so that you have some of these symptoms, what tests should the listener do to see whether or not they actually have hypothyroid and or Hashimoto's?
Okay, well, in my book, I have a one-page testing guide. You could take a picture of it and take it to your doctor, but you want to ask them for a full thyroid panel and make sure they include the TPO and TG antibody tests, because a lot of times they consider a full thyroid panel just to be the TSH and T3 and T4 and that, but they don't do the antibodies unless you ask for it. That's what I find.
Some experts on thyroid say if you have any antibodies, your Hashimoto's. And now, but on the antibody tests on the that you get from the labs, there's a normal range where over a certain amount. What do you subscribe to? Do you think any antibodies means Hashimoto's, or does it have to be over that 30 number, depending on the scale they use for some of the antibodies?
I would defer to a doctor for that question. I really can't say. I just know that if I'm down in that range, I'm happy. So even if I'm above zero, if I'm less than 35, if it's 0 to 35, then I'm ecstatic. But I think like once you go over the zero and you go autoimmune, I think they say you're always autoimmune. So you can go into remission, but you might, you can also relapse, which has happened to me. I've had relapses and then gone back into remission.
And what kind of foods should people eat? What should we eat to prevent Hashimoto's or autoimmune diseases? Probably very similar. Do you subscribe to paleo, or do you subscribe to being a vegan, or are you a carnivore, or a little bit of everything? What do you think works best for autoimmune disease?
Well, I went to nutrition school. I learned 110 different diets, and every time I studied one, I was like, that's the ticket. That's the one I'm going to do. So there's benefits to a lot of different diets. And right now, I'm thinking that the whole food plant-based diet is the best way to go. With paleo, sometimes people don't get, when you don't have enough grains, there's an interesting problem that Dr. William Davis brought up, the author of Wheat Belly, and he said that some people develop hypercalcemia because when they're not having grains, too much calcium is in the intestines, and the hypercalcemia can cause problems. So you have to take vitamin K2 or K1 and K2 with your vitamin D to make sure your calcium goes to the right places. But that's another topic. I want to make sure I got that in there because I think it's important to take that vitamin K. But also the Mediterranean diet has been shown to help reverse autoimmune conditions, is very good. There's also the autoimmune protocol, the AIP diet, which is very strict. I was never able to stick to that personally, but a lot of people have a lot of good luck with that, especially people that are like really sick, because it's kind of like going on an elimination diet, and then you slowly introduce things back in so you can determine what's causing your symptoms.
I think that is a very good way of approaching. When I'm dealing with the eye, I like having an elimination diet. People that have having all these kind of allergies and around the eye and problems. A lot of times that is a very good approach. Let's talk about supplements. Everybody loves to talk about supplements. What supplements helped you with your Hashimoto's? Let's start off with the ones that help convert T4 to T3, selenium and zinc. Let's start with selenium.
Oh, yeah. So selenium and zinc, those are among the top 7 nutrient deficiencies with Hashimoto's I write about. The top 7 deficiencies that are common are selenium, zinc, magnesium, iron, vitamin B1, thiamine, and vitamin B12, and vitamin D. So with selenium, there's been studies that show that taking selenium with this product, Mayo and Cairo and Inositol, can restore normal thyroid function, just taking those 2 things. But yeah, zinc and selenium are very important. And there's regions in the United States where there's no zinc in the soil, especially here in New Jersey. There's very little zinc in the selenium in the soil. So you have to supplement or eat foods like Brazil nuts, or, there's a lot of foods that have selenium if you don't like. I don't personally love Brazil nuts, but I do eat them sometimes because I know that they're so good for my thyroid.
And zinc also helps convert T4 to T3, and in addition,
That's right.
helps intestinal permeability, which is interesting. Now, most people feel you don't want more than 40 milligrams of zinc a day. Your body can't absorb more than that. Do you agree with that? And how many milligrams were you taking a day when you were, or do you still take, or when you were working on getting your thyroid under control?
I think I was taking 30. Sometimes I would take a supplement that had it in it and that maybe it was a little bit less. The most I've ever taken is 50. And that was when I had COVID and I lost my sense of smell and taste. And I took quercetin and 50 milligrams of zinc, and it came back in a week. I was very impressed with that.
So what kind of zinc there's many different forms of zinc. Do you have a favorite that's best absorbed?
I would think that the liquid forms are better absorbed, but I'm not really an expert in that area.
Okay, zinc picolinate, no
There's
specific. Let's move to vitamin D3.
okay.
Tell us what happened when you took, in your book, you talk about when you took vitamin D,
Mhm.
were low with vitamin D, and then the
Yes.
vitamin D raised up.
Yeah, so the range for vitamin D on the typical test is between 30 and 100, and I was at 40 by the time I got to Dr. Jerk, and he tested me, which was great because I had never had my vitamin D tested before, but I had already started taking 1,000 IUs a day, so I might have been even lower. Anyway, I started taking 10,000 IUs a day, and within a year, I went up to like 60. But it's recommended to get your level up between 60 and 80. And for me personally, I stopped getting sick. I haven't had bronchitis in years. I used to have it every single year. I had it when I was a kid, so it's maybe a weakness for me, but I used to have it every winter and sometimes in the summer too. And I never get, it's been like, I don't know, 8 or 10 years since I've been really sick with a cold.
And you take your vitamin D3 with vitamin K2, you take it together?
Yeah, I take Super K from
And
Life Extension.
the reason to take K2 is because when vitamin D goes up, it increases calcium. And you want the calcium to go in your bones and teeth. You don't want it to go into your arteries. So that's why
Right.
it's good to combine it. And a lot of the good brands, like you said, Life Extension is a good brand for it. But the
Yeah.
thing with Life Extension, I want to get your opinion on this, but as we're working through these supplements, Life Extension does put iodine in their D3 K2. And if you have Hashimoto's, it's
Hmm.
it's very controversial about iodine,
Mm.
because there's a side of people that say you have to have iodine, and then there's
Yeah.
the other camp the other camp that says iodine makes Hashimoto's worse. So,
Yes.
and you do a good job in your book about giving both sides of the issue. You want to comment on that?
Wow. That I did a very deep dive into this subject because I had the experience myself where I had a reaction to iodine, which I talk about. Um, but Dr. Isabella Wentz, the thyroid pharmacist, and Dr. Datis Karazian, who wrote a book about thyroid as well, both agree that the taking supplemental iodine increases antibodies in people with Hashimoto's disease, and it can even trigger Hashimoto's disease. And there were a lot of people that were, and they still do. They still tell people online all the time to take iodine, but it can increase. Okay, this is what happens when you take iodine. Initially, and this happened to me, you feel better because it stimulates the thyroid to squeeze out extra thyroid hormones. So you're feeling more energy, and you're feeling more clarity, and you feel better. But over long term, that extra release of those hormones takes a toll on the thyroid gland and it leads to further destruction of the gland. So the science says it's it's not good. I was not able to find good science to say that it helped. So I'm on the side of not taking it unless you have a lab verified deficiency.
That brings me back to the cause of Hashimoto's, uh, the fluoride, chlorine, bromide
Mm-hmm.
in breads that compete with them. So if you could talk about that as a cause and how those will compete and block the iodine.
Right. Those are all known as halogens, fluoride, bromide, chloride, and they displace the iodine out of the thyroid. So taking iodine, and this is why I started taking it, a nascent iodine drops like several years ago, because I had heard that they can detox those things out of the thyroid. So I was taking 3 drops a day. Before that, my antibodies were very low. And I took it for a couple of years and I felt better. And I went back to have my antibodies measured and they went up over 200. I had never been that high. Some people have them in the thousands. They might think that's low, but that was the highest that I ever had. So that showed me that iodine did increase my antibodies, and I didn't want, that to impact the health of my thyroid. So I went off it and my antibodies went back down.
So let's talk about vitamin B1 or thiamine, or even the better form of it, benfotiamine. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, benfotiamine. So there was an interesting study of women that had fatigue, and they gave one woman received the benfotiamine through injection, and her fatigue resolved within a couple of hours. The other women that took the supplements orally, theirs resolved in a couple of days. So it's interesting because this nutrient doesn't come up on a blood test as being deficient. So there's really no way of knowing you're low unless you have fatigue and you take it, then maybe that would be an indicator.
And I also want to bring up, we mentioned about zeolite before. The podcast I did was with Jeff Hoyt, and he really did an excellent job. How about iron? People have to be careful taking iron. What do you think about iron and Hashimoto's, and why do people sometimes need to take iron?
Well, some people, I've never had that problem personally. I had too much iron, and that can be an issue too, where you have to go have your blood taken out to lower it. But I think that probably happens with people that don't eat meat or don't eat enough meat, because since I'm a meat eater, I guess maybe that's why I don't have a problem with iron, or maybe some people have some genetic issues that make it hard for them to absorb the iron.
In your book, I was very interested in the part about medicinal mushrooms. I thought that was a really good chapter. You did a really good job with that. Talk about reishi, that they have terpenes, and chaga mushroom. Tell us the benefit of each of those and how they could be helpful.
There's so many benefits to both of those mushrooms. They're amazing. But for autoimmune disease in particular, they are known as immune modulators. So they help your immune system to calm down if it's overactive, or to boost it up if you need an immune boost. But they also help to regulate blood sugar, cholesterol. They help with depression and anxiety. In fact, reishi, taken long term, can impart a sense of calm. And I think that's happened to me. I've been taking reishi now for probably 10 years. And recently I found this one. Did you know there's purple reishi?
Wow.
I think that's just magical. So I had to get it. So now I'm taking purple reishi. Used to be only for the royal family.
Has it taste? Because terpenes are pretty bitter.
Oh yeah, this one is strong. This one, yeah. Some of them are in alcohol and some are not. So the ones in alcohol are obviously stronger. Usually I take capsules, like I take reishi capsules as well. And chaga mushroom, the chaga mushroom grows on birch trees, and you can drink that as a tea and it tastes very nice. You can put lemon in it. To me, it tastes just like iced tea. So that's a good way to take that. A lot of people are having it in their coffee now. It's expensive coffee. I'd rather just pop a couple of capsules. I think it's more cost effective and you get a higher dose, but that's just me.
And it contains beta glucans, and
Yes.
they did a study with mice and tumors, and it was a 60% reduction in tumors with chaga. So if you could talk about that study, if you know anything about that.
I didn't hear the one about the mice, but I did read that people in Russia that drink chaga tea every day never get cancer, and that they've known for 100 years in Russia that chaga cures psoriasis.
And how about turkey tail? Anything about turkey?
Oh yeah.
Cordyceps?
There was a study at Bastyr University years ago I wrote when I was a citizen journalist for Natural News, and that helped to reduce breast cancer tumors. And oh, by the way, in Asia, medicinal mushrooms, along with chemotherapy for over 30 years, to help with the therapy and also to reduce the side effects from the chemo.
And you have something interesting in your book, carbon 60 or C60, something people don't know about. Tell us about that and the mice study that took the C60.
Okay, this is really interesting. So carbon C60 is it's called fullerene. It's kind of a little bit of a strong taste, but they did this study with 3 groups of rats. One group of rats had water only, one had olive oil only, and the third group had the C60 with olive oil. all at the end of the study, all the water-fed rats died. 62% of the olive oil-fed rats died. None of the rats died that had the C60. In fact, they lived to almost twice their lifespan. They lived 95% longer than expected. So if this study could relate to humans, it could actually extend your lifespan. That's pretty exciting.
So tell me about, you had thyroid nodules. You know, we have about 5 minutes left. Tell us a little
Okay.
bit about how you got rid of the thyroid nodules.
Okay, so when I finally got diagnosed, I went to a doctor who asked me if I wanted an ultrasound. Sure enough, I had two thyroid nodules, so found another endocrinologist who I nicknamed in my book Dr. Cutthroat because I went to see him and he said my nodules were suspicious, that they were hard and they had uneven edges. So I said, well, what happens if it's cancer? And he just made the hand motion across his throat, like he's going to cut my throat open. I was like, you're not going to cut my throat open. So I said, can I take some time to do my natural medicine? And I did. So I came up with a regimen. I alternated the modified citrus pectin and the zeolite powder. I was making shakes with all kinds of potions and powders, green powders, mushrooms, berries, camelberry, goji berry powder. I was drinking water with lemon and chia seeds, and I was making a porridge every morning with 3 different seeds and coconut flakes and cashew and putting blueberries on top. So, and I was eating very light for that time period. And I didn't know if it was going to work, but when he finally called me 2 months later, I went for the biopsy and they couldn't get any cells out. They had shrunk so small, they were less than a millimeter. So I was absolutely thrilled. He didn't sound too happy. He was like, I don't know if you want to do the test again. I'm like, why would I want to do it again? My treatment worked. Do you want to know what I did? And he really wasn't interested.
Wow. So let's
Yeah.
talk about, so we've been through on the journey of what causes Hashimoto's, what you did to treat it. Now let's talk about prevention. We have about 3 minutes left. And what are things that we could do to try to prevent getting autoimmune disease and
Mhm.
Hashimoto's? Because that's
Okay.
autoimmune disease run together.
There's a very important thing is to keep a healthy gut lining. Your intestinal lining gets permeable from eating gluten and pesticides and GMO foods. So you got to be careful, eat a clean diet, make sure you sleep enough and drink filtered clean water. And also make sure you detoxify and resolve any hidden infections that are making your immune system work extra hard.
And for people out there who are suffering, what is the message that you have for them?
Never give up. Stay positive because you can get better if you keep going. You fill your nutrient deficiencies. You get the bad stuff out. Your energy will come back. You'll be in a better mood, and it's worth it to invest in yourself. So I say, invest in yourself because you are worth it.
You know, we talked a little bit before about detoxification, and what do you think about sauna?
Oh, I think it's great for maybe not for menopausal women since I have hot flashes now, it's like a nightmare. But I have a far infrared sauna in my house and I used to go in it. I can't tolerate it right now, but it's a great way to get the toxins out through the skin. So when you're doing a detox, it's great to go in the sauna and shower off right away.
And there's some controversy about goitogens. Talk to
Yeah.
us about cruciferous vegetables and some of the bad goitogens that people need to avoid.
So while doing my research, I found that the most dangerous goitrogens are soy and canola. So those are the two to worry about. The cruciferous vegetables really are not an issue, especially if you cook them. I don't eat them raw. I cook them. That pretty much destroys any harmful goitrogens. But that story came originally, is interesting, of a lady that ate 2 pounds of raw bok choy in a day. That, that's where the story originated.
Quickly explain what a goitogen is.
A goitrogen.
Yeah, explain what it is.
It's a substance that's found in certain foods that can and some people cause a goiter in their thyroid. So their thyroid swelled and they develop a lump in their neck.
And how about like certain makeups like lipstick, Is that something that people should avoid because of the lead?
Oh, yeah, I think you should use all clean personal care products because so many of them have chemicals, especially the cheap things that you get from China. So you have to be careful. I was even buying gluten-free lipstick because I was so allergic to gluten.
Well, I want to thank Julie Diaz, the author of Conquer Hashimoto's, for joining us today. How could people find out more about you, Julie?
Go to yourwellnesschampion.com and you can connect with me there on Facebook as well. It's Your Wellness Champion and Instagram.
This is Dr. Kevin Gelb. I want to thank Julie Diaz. We'll be back next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your eyes and your vision are under attack. Damaging blue light from the sun, your phone, your computer, your tablet, even light bulbs and car headlights is constantly bombarding you. The good news is our eyes actually already have a line of defense to counter the effects of blue light. This defense is made up of 3 pigments called carotenoids. MacuHealth with Micromicelle, the only supplement with the exclusive patent on all 3 macular carotenoids and Micromicelle technology.
Fitting multifocal contact lenses presents a big opportunity to meet patient needs while growing your practice. Alcon is your partner not only with our innovative portfolio, but through e-learning. Learn to enhance your multifocal strategy today with the Alcon Experience Academy.